Good evening, everyone. It's Michelle Carter, and I am the director of the Aram Public Library. With us tonight is Marnie Mamminga, the author of Return to Wake Robin. Welcome, Marnie, and welcome to Facebook.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and the Aram Library, and all those who have tuned in and are listening or will listen later and watch. I welcome you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're very welcome. We're very excited to have you tonight. So for those of you who are not familiar with Marnie, Marnie has written a memoir of her family's adventures up in the Northwoods of Wisconsin at their cabin named Wake Robin. And she's going to share a little bit about her story, and she'll do a short reading for us tonight. And if you have any questions about her writing process or questions about the book, if you've read it, we do own it at the library, and we'll provide a link if you'd like to order it. The holidays are coming up. So just take part and post your questions, and we'll be reaching out to you as we work through our process tonight. So Marnie, can you tell our audience what inspired you to share these wonderful memories of your family's cabin in the Northwoods?
Absolutely. I can pinpoint it exactly. It started, I was sitting on the dock up on our lake in Big Spider, Hayward, Wisconsin. And we've been coming to our cabin since our family's owned it since 1929. It's still exactly the same 91 years later. No TV, no internet. We do have a telephone, no dishwasher. We've left it almost exactly as it was built by my grandparents in 1929, and we just love it that way. But as the years rolled by, I began to notice that that the lake was changing. At the time when I was growing up in the 50s and 60s, there were 13 resorts on our lake, the Moonahannas and Tall Timbers, Moody's Camp, which was next door to our cabin. And they were all disappearing, being sold and turned into condos or just disappearing. And the boats had changed. We grew up on little old fishing boats with a 5-horse, 7-horse motor. And the boats had gotten bigger motors, jet skis had come on the scene, and a lot of the old cabins are being torn down. And so I sat on the dock and I thought, I wonder, who will remember this air of simplicity where, as Thoreau said, all you need are the basics and the boats and a boat. And I wondered if perhaps I should try to capture that. And so I wrote kind of an opening ode or poem about seeking those memories, and that's in the preface of the book. And I just started out to try to capture what that air was like, the square dances, the fishing guides, the entertaining oneself on a rainy day, no Game Boy, no videos, you counted on the friendship, you counted on nature, you appreciated the solitude of just being up in the Northwoods. So that's basically what's the springboard for my taking off and writing Return to Wake Robin.
I have to share with everybody, I first saw Marnie a couple years ago at the Michael Fields Institute when she was doing a reading there. And my mother's family, I took my mom to see you because my mother's family is from Exland, which is, about 35 minutes from Hayward. So we're very familiar with that area. And I have fond memories of my grandparents' farm and, fishing. And, there's nothing like the smell of the Northwoods. So, so how did you start your research process? Because there's, as I read your book, I'm like, how does she remember all of that?
I think because it was so unique, the experience of leaving, I grew up in Aurora, Illinois, and it was a 450-mile journey, which is one of the first chapters, one of the early chapters in the book, just getting 5 kids in the station wagon and a canoe on top. made it memorable from day one. And then leaving, we're only one state away from Wisconsin, but going up to the far northwest corner, leaving the flat cornfields, and driving gradually into the woods, the forests, the lakes, was so almost like visiting a woodland Oz. And I think that's why it's stayed in my memory so long. I did interview a lot of, thankfully, at the time I wrote this book, which came out in 2012, a lot of that older generation that we grew up with was passing away. And thankfully, I was able to interview a number of them, the fishing guides, the resort owner, Dick Seitz, who is still alive from Moody's camp, other folks who had summer cabins along the lake, and hear their experience mixed with my own family's, and weave that into a memoir, which is very interesting, because you are relying more on your memory as opposed to researching through books and other venues. So I also had a wonderful, my father was a wonderful photographer, and we have wonderful, those old black and white photos that help tell the story as well. And a lot of those are in the book. So that was kind of my launching pad for research for a memoir.
Yeah. So in the book that you share that your grandfather built the cabin, can you tell us a little bit about him? Why did he pick that area, do you think?
Well, my grandmother and grandfather, Earl and Clara Oatman, ran a dairy business in Aurora, Illinois. And it was called Oatman Brothers. And my grandfather and his brother had a dairy in Dundee, Illinois. And they came down the river during, after World War I, and started this kind of expansion, secondary. And sadly, his brother, William, died shortly after they made this move. And so Earl, as many people did, escaped, went up to the Northwoods to find solace. And I think he went with some friends, and I think it was in the fall, they went hunting, and he fell in love with the area, the beauty. It's gorgeous right there now with the leaves and all, and was so taken by it that he wanted to bring Clara, my grandmother, and my father, David, who would have been a young boy at that time. And so they came back up and they stayed at Boulder Lodge, which is not too far away near Clam Lake. It's still running, still a wonderful spot. And they stayed there for a couple of years in the summer for several months fishing. And my father was an only child, so the lakes offered freedom, and he was an Eagle Scout, applying all those skills in nature. And they were driving down the road one day and saw a sign for Moody's camp. And Ted Moody had been my grandfather's mechanic back in Elgin. And they thought, I wonder if this is the same Ted Moody. So they turned the corner, drove back, and sure enough, this was their friend and former mechanic and now resort owner, Ted Moody. And this would have been in the mid-1920s that they discovered each other. And he had set up a wonderful fishing camp on the lakes of Big Spider. But the difference was, it was on the American meal plan with 3 meals a day. And it was a rustic log cabin, the lodge, but there were white tablecloths on the birch bark tables and wildflowers in the vases and square dances every Wednesday night. So there was you could go out and fish in the day or hike in the woods and then come back to a lovely meal, and you would meet the same, guests sometimes came at the same time every year. There's friendships with the fishing guides, with the resort owners, Ted and Myrtle Moody. And they loved it so much, they decided to build their own cabin. And my grandmother, Clara, is actually the one who designed the cabin. And it has it started out with just an outhouse, but it has a tiny little kitchen. We call it a 2-butt kitchen, 2 little bedrooms off that, a living room with a fieldstone fireplace, which was the only source of heat. And then the piece de resistance is a screened-in porch overlooking the lake with a little sleeping nook in the back. And as I've said, we've just kept it like that. And she named it, she was a wonderful new wildflowers, new ornithologist, new birds, new appreciated beauty so much. So the wake robin trillium blooms throughout the forest in the springtime. And she named her little cabin after that wildflower trillium, and its common name is wake robin. So we've been returning ever since.
Oh, that's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite? Do you have a favorite chapter in the book or a favorite memory that you included?
I do. There's so many of them. One of them, as I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons I wrote the book is I saw this ending of this air. You could kind of feel it, see it, so forth. But I think personally for me too, it was a kind of a coming of age as a child, growing up and turning, and at just about the time that the resorts ended and the cabins were being sold off, is when I was turning 16. And so one of my favorite is my 16th birthday party with my friend Patty Hobart, who came up every summer, lived down the shore, and her grandmother and my mother threw a 16th birthday party for us on the dock and made little sugar cube corsages for us. And we invited our lake friends. And our dock was old and it was not in the best repair. And so many of us got on it and started diving and jumping off that. The dock collapsed and we made it into a slide. I think we all had splinters in our behinds at the end of it. And I remember that so much because it was really kind of tragically, Patty died in her early 30s. And it was just kind of a special moment that I'll always remember of our childhood, that gaiety, that love, that laughter. And then shortly thereafter, the resort was sold and the friends scattered, you didn't see them as much. And so it was kind of a parting of ways in many ways, not just for the lake and the cabin, but the people too. And then coming of age there at the late 60s changed a lot as well. So
well, yeah, the world was definitely changing then.
yes.
So I know you still have the cabin and that you go there.
Right.
Do your children also take the journey from wherever they are? Do they come visit?
They do, and they just love it. My two sisters, Nancy and Mary, my brother Tom, and I still share the cabin together. And our brother David out in Eugene, Oregon's got beautiful trees and woods, so he's out there. But the four of us siblings share the cabin, and my children grew up there. My three sons grew up there. Absolutely loved it. We often it's a tiny cabin, but first of all, my own family, 7 of us in it, is kind of hard to even imagine. And then
there's an outside.
my husband is a saint. As a son-in-law, he's shared the cabin with his mother-in-law, my sister, my siblings, are their cousins. So often there were many of us in there, and you just made it work. And those were some of the most fun times. Now my grandchildren are coming up. My sons and their families live near us in Batavia, Illinois. And my husband and I, because of all this crowding and over 20 years ago, made the big decision to buy a cabin across the lake, with the idea of perhaps retiring there, and perhaps as our family expanded, giving us more room. So we have that cabin, and that has helped out a lot to spread us out. And so this summer, which was kind of interesting, with the COVID, we didn't feel we could stay together. And so we let our sons and their family have our cabin. We call it Starlight Lodge across the lake. And my husband and I came back to Wake Robin, which for several weeks, which was just amazing, since he had come up as my high school sweetheart. We'd had our honeymoon there. It was our 50th wedding anniversary this summer. We were there for that. So it just holds a place in our hearts for all of us in our family still. And we're just so grateful we all still have it.
Oh, that's so special.
It's
Oh,
fun.
there's nothing like that.
Yeah.
So can you, before you do your reading excerpt that you're going to share with everyone, do you have any other writings or books that are coming out or that are out?
I do. And if you like, so I'm showing my book. Maybe you can see my poster up here.
We can.
This is my mother on the cover is Ellen, can you see it? Eleanor Woody. And my father took this picture in 1946 after he came back from World War II. And again, returned to the Northwoods for solace and captured this picture of my mother rowing across the lake. And miraculously, she has this beautiful little smile on her face. And their first child, my sister Nancy, was born 9 months later. So that might explain that. And then my second book, also published by the Wisconsin Historical Society Press in 2017, On a Clear Night, Essays from the Heartland, celebrates those wonderful, seemingly ordinary moments that actually are extraordinary and profound. Capturing those moments in life of, teaching a teenager to drive, or having to put a parent in a nursing home, or just so many of those moments that somehow stayed in your heart. And I think particularly in this age of our pandemic and the COVID, those ordinary things that we kind of took for granted, that we didn't know would go away or would be altered so tremendously, ring so true to us and are so part of our hearts. And so it's all about the nature and friendships, all those episodes and things that in your life, family, that the environment that have an impact on you. It told in a similar essay manner that I hope others will relate to through their own similar experiences. So that's that. And then I'm working on switching gears to some fiction with a children's story and a children's novel, both almost completed. So
Oh, awesome.
looking forward to kind of see where that leads me. That's
Well,
next.
you'll get to share those with us when you get a chance.
I hope so. Yes, I hope so. So.
All right. Well, now everyone, Marnie's going to share a short excerpt from her book. She's going to read to us. So I am going to turn my camera off so we can focus on Marnie. And if you have any questions, please feel free to post them on our Facebook page, and I'll relay those to Marnie tonight, or we'll be watching the post all week. And so Marnie will be able to answer your questions too. All right.
Thank you, Michelle.
Uh-huh.
All right, so I thought I would read tonight to you one of my favorite chapters. It's called The Square Dance, Song of Summer, 1959. And the reason why I chose this, I think it kind of encapsulates not only the end of the air, what it was like, but the square dance itself, kind of the end. I'm going to read the end of it to you. Those feelings, those emotions of laughter and love, but also loss, but how that still gave you such wonderful memories for a lifetime. So I have to prepare you in this end of this book. I have to sing a little bit, and I'm not really a singer, so you'll have to bear with me. And to set the scene, these square dances were every Wednesday night up at Moody's Camp Resort, a little 3-piece band, accordion, drums, a guitar. The caller was the fishing guide, handsome debonair Eddie, and lake folks from all around, other resorts, the waitresses at the resorts, the fishing guides, the summer visitors, all came together for this one night of music and dance. In our little cabin in Wake Robin, 7 of us scurrying around, getting ready, my mother ironing our dresses with a hot steam iron, my sister and I trying to comb our hair, and then all of us hearing the music and wanting to get there as quick as we can. So the hokey pokey, the bunny hop, the duck for the oyster have all been going on. And this is kind of the middle of the square dance and towards the end. So join me on this summer night. Throughout the evening, highlights rained like stardust from the sky. Tommy, the fishing guide, swinging his young wife, Violet, around the room with dazzling finesse in a high-stepping polka. Eddie calling out the intricate moves like a stage actor, delivering his lines with snappy allure. Little children dancing with their parents, bashful teenagers sharing a first dance, and most lovely of all, resort owners Dick and Lucille Sykes waltzing alone to three-count elegance in a heart-melting embrace. No Broadway stage could have delivered more mesmerizing moments. And then suddenly it all came to an end. When the band swung into the refrains of Irene, good night, Irene, Irene, good night, Irene, good night, Irene, I'll see you in my dreams. You knew it was over. With panic in your heart, you searched for a ready partner, grabbed his or her hand, and frantically headed to the floor in a desperate effort to not miss the last dance. How could it have ended so soon? It seemed like it was only just getting started, but without a doubt, the evening was coming to a close. The band smoothly transitioned from Goodnight Irene into Good night, ladies. Good night, gentlemen. Good night, ladies. We hate to see you go. Merrily we roll along, roll along, roll along. Merrily we roll along over the deep blue sea. It was then that you knew you had to wait a whole week to dance again, or worse. If your vacation was over, your heart ached with the knowledge that it would be a long year before you might be lucky enough to return and relish such magic. As the last note ended, a burst of laughter and clapping followed, hardly hiding the sorrowful sighs at the evening's closure. Friends bid each other fond farewells and headed home under starry skies. Those who came by boat maneuvered shadowy steps to the lake, and with the low rumbling start of their motors, set off across the waters under the breathtaking Milky Way. Our family shuffled off to our station wagon, parked amid the cluster of other cars by the camp's log garage. As the seven of us piled in and snapped on our seatbelts, our suddenly sleepy selves watched quietly as our father swung the car down the narrow dirt road to our cabin. Only the sound of tires crunching on gravel filled the air as the headlights illuminated what seemed like an enchanted forest. Circling into our driveway past our leaning log garage, we noted with satisfaction that a lovely lime Luna moth and a cluster of other colorful ones clung to its back door. Resting on the warm wood from their own sprightly dance, they soaked up the heat from the overhead light like sunbathers on a rock. Tumbling out of the car, we lined up in the cabin's dark hallway, waiting for our father to unlock the door. Then with quick goodnights, we stripped off our clothes, fumbled on our pajamas, and stumbled into beds, leaving our once freshly ironed shirts and skirts in a heap upon the floor. Gradually, the forest became still. The last boat quieted on a distant shore, and only the lapping waves sounded their rhythmic song. Slowly, we began to drift off under the hypnotizing spell as a reprise of square dance tunes swirled our hearts into exhausted, blissful sleep. In my dreams, I can still see and hear those lodge night parties. But most of all, I hear the music, its sweet lyrical refrains echoing across the lake in suspended glory. Thank you so much for joining us and for listening.
And that was really magical. Thank you for sharing.
I'm glad I'm a writer and not a singer. Thank you so much, Michelle and Aram Library and everybody who's tuned in. I appreciate it. And I look forward to answering your questions.
That'll be great. And thank you for your time tonight. And everyone, don't forget, you can post questions for Marnie, her writing process or her memories up in Hayward, Wisconsin on our Facebook page all week, and she'll be looking for your questions. Also, the Aram Public Library does have a copy of Return to Wake Robin. And also we have a signed copy that we're raffling off. So if you go ahead and ask a question, you'll be entered in the raffle. And we'll be posting information on how to purchase Marnie's Return to Wake Robin and her newest book as well. So thank you, everyone. Stay healthy, and thanks for joining us tonight. Good night.